The distress signal. The research vessel Luminous Seeker drifted helplessly at the edge of the Cygnus Arm, its damaged hull venting atmosphere into the void. Captain Zelturin worked frantically at the communications array, her six-fingered hands trembling as she broadcast a desperate SOS on all frequencies. Mayday! Mayday! This is the Zintheri research vessel Luminous Seeker. We are under attack by raiders. Critical systems failing. 27 crew members still alive, requesting immediate assistance. Around her, the bridge of the once proud research vessel lay in ruins. Console panels sparked, and the acrid smell of burned circuitry filled the air. Emergency lighting cast eerie blue shadows across the faces of her surviving crew. The Zintheri were known throughout the galaxy as brilliant astronomers and peaceful explorers, not warriors. Their silver-scaled skin and delicate bone structure were evolved for the gentle gravity of their homeworld, not for combat. Status report. Zelturin called. Her voice steadied, despite the fear gripping her three hearts. Science Officer Vress limped toward her, clutching a wound on his arm. Main engines destroyed. Life support at 38% and falling. Hull breaches on decks 2 through 4. He paused, his voice breaking. 27 crew members still alive, Captain. Zelturin nodded grimly. Their scientific expedition to study a rare pulsar cluster had gone horribly wrong when the Krivax raiders appeared seemingly from nowhere. The pirates were known throughout the sector. Brutal mercenaries who attacked without warning or mercy. Keep working on sealing those hull breaches, Zelturin ordered. I'll try to reach help. She turned back to the communications array, her long fingers dancing across the damaged controls. The system sputtered to life, and she leaned toward the transmitter. Any vessel within range. This is Captain Zelturin of the Zintheri research vessel Luminous Seeker. We are damaged and under attack by Krivax raiders. 27 crew members remain alive. Life support failing. Requesting immediate assistance. The message broadcast out into the darkness of space. Zelturin repeated it, adding coordinates and details of their situation. She knew it was unlikely anyone would respond quickly enough to save them. The nearest Zintheri outpost was days away, even at maximum speed. Captain, called out Sensor Officer Mira, whose station was one of the few still functioning. I'm picking up movement. The raiders are regrouping. Zelturin's hearts sank. The pirates had withdrawn after their initial assault, presumably to prepare for boarding. The Luminous Seeker carried valuable scientific equipment and research data that would fetch a high price on the black market. How long? Zelturin asked. 20 minutes, maybe less, Mira replied, her voice trembling. Zelturin returned to the communications array, broadcasting their distress call with increased urgency. As she worked, a small indicator light on the console began to blink. Someone's receiving our transmission, she said, hope rising in her voice. The crew members still able to stand gathered around the communication station. Zelturin adjusted the controls, trying to strengthen the signal. Information began to flow across her screen, identifying the source of the reception. Sol system, she whispered. The quarantine zone. Vress gasped. The Deathworlders. Zelturin nodded slowly. Every spacefaring species knew of Sol and its inhabitants. The Galactic Concord had placed the entire system under strict quarantine 3 centuries ago. The sole inhabited planet, Earth, was classified as a death world, its native species considered too dangerous to interact with the wider galactic community. They can't help us, said Mira. They're restricted to their home system by Concord law. Even if they weren't, Vress added, would we want their help? Zintheri children grew up hearing tales of the humans of Earth, beings evolved on a planet of high gravity, extreme temperature variations, and constant predators, creatures with incredible endurance and aggression, whose bodies could withstand radiation levels that would kill most sentient species, beings whose very biology was optimized for survival at any cost. We have no choice, Zelturin said firmly. Any help is better than none. She turned back to the communicator, but before she could transmit again, Mira cried out, "The raiders are coming back." Multiple ships on approach vector. The main view screen flickered to life, showing 5 Kryvax raider vessels moving toward them. Unlike the sleek, beautiful lines of the Zintheri science vessel, the raider ships were ugly, cobbled-together monstrosities bristling with stolen weapons. Even one would have overwhelmed the luminous Seeker's minimal defenses. 5 meant certain doom. "They're charging weapons," reported Mira, her voice hollow. Zeltyran looked around at her crew, scientists and explorers, not warriors. They had ventured into space to expand knowledge, not to die at the hands of pirates. With sudden clarity, she knew what had to be done. She returned to the communications array one last time. The indicator light still blinked, showing that someone in the Sol system was listening. Zeltyran pressed the transmit button. "To any receiving this signal in the Sol system, we are scientists, not soldiers. Please help us. The Concord has kept you isolated, but we need you now. We are living beings facing death. If you can hear this, if you can help, please." As the words left the communicator, the ship rocked violently. The raiders had fired a warning shot, deliberately striking a non-critical area. "They want us alive," Vress said, steadying himself against a console. "At least some of us." Everyone knew what happened to crews captured by Kryvax raiders. Some were ransomed if they were valuable enough. Others were sold into slavery in the lawless regions beyond Concord space. The rest were simply disposed of. Zeltyran closed her eyes briefly. The Sol system was their only hope, but what could the quarantined Deathworlders do? Even if they wanted to help, they were bound by Concord restrictions. And even if they somehow broke those restrictions, they would never arrive in time. The ship's remaining lights flickered as another blast hit them. This one was not meant to wound, but to disable completely. The luminous Seeker groaned like a dying animal. "Boarding craft detected," Mira reported, her voice barely audible over the ship's dying systems. "They'll breach the airlock in minutes." Zeltyran looked at her fellow crew members. They were scientists to the end, faces showing curiosity about what would come next, even as fear shone in their eyes. "It has been my honor to serve with you all," Zeltyran said simply as the raiders prepared to board. None of the Zintheri noticed the small indicator light on the communications console blinking rapidly, signaling an incoming transmission from the Sol system. Admiral Helena Chen stood motionless, her eyes fixed on the holographic projection floating in the center of the United Earth Defense Force Command Center. The alien distress call played again, the translator converting the strange musical language into crisp English. The voice sounded desperate even through the mechanical translation. "Any vessel within range. This is Captain Zeltyran of the Zintheri research vessel Luminous Seeker. We are damaged and under attack by Kryvax raiders. 27 crew members remain alive. Life support failing. Requesting immediate assistance." The command center hummed with tense activity. Dozens of officers at their stations worked furiously, analyzing the signal, mapping coordinates, assessing response options. The atmosphere was charged with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "Play the final transmission again," Chen ordered, her voice calm despite the adrenaline coursing through her body. The hologram flickered, and the alien voice returned. "To any receiving this signal in the Sol system, we are scientists, not soldiers. Please help us. The Concord has kept you isolated, but we need you now. We are living beings facing death. If you can hear this, if you can help, please." Chen turned to Commander Rivera, her second-in-command and longtime friend. His usually relaxed face was now tight with concentration. "So we've confirmed it's authentic?" she asked. "Yes, Admiral," replied Rivera, swiping through data on his tablet. "Deep Space Relay picked it up 40 minutes ago. We've run every verification protocol. It's real." He paused, bringing up a new set of images. "And we've identified the attackers. Kryvax raiders. They'd been hitting frontier colonies across 3 sectors. "What do we know about the raiders?" Chen asked. "Pirates. Brutal ones. Intelligence gathered from our covered observation satellites shows they target vulnerable ships, strip them of valuable tech, and either ransom or enslave the crews." His face darkened. "Many victims don't survive." Chen nodded slowly, processing the information. For over a century, humanity had respected the galactic quarantine around Sol. Early probes had detected alien civilizations, and Earth had eagerly prepared for first contact. But when contact finally came, it wasn't what anyone expected. Earth was classified as a death world and quarantined. Humans were deemed too dangerous to join the galactic community, their biology supposedly too aggressive, their strength too great, their endurance too threatening. But humanity hadn't remained idle behind a quarantine line. They studied the stars, built powerful ships, and prepared for the day they might be accepted. Most importantly, they listened to the cosmos, intercepting communications, learning languages, mapping conflicts, understanding the politics of a galaxy that had rejected them. "The Zintheri," Chen said. "What do we know about them?" Officer Patel stepped forward, the xenobiology specialist holding her own tablet. "Peaceful species, primarily scientists and artists, physically fragile by our standards, evolved on a low-gravity world with stable climate. Triplet cardiovascular system, silver-scaled epidermis. Average height about 2 meters. They're known for their advances in astronomy and physics." "And the quarantine laws. What are our options?" Chen asked. Legal Officer Washington cleared his throat. "The Concord Quarantine Directive is clear. Sol origin ships are forbidden from crossing the boundary line. Violation is considered an act of aggression. Are there exceptions?" Chen pressed. Washington hesitated. "There's no precedent. No quarantined world has ever." He trailed off, then straightened. "Actually, there is a provision. The Galactic Maritime Code predates the Concord itself. It states that all spacefaring vessels must respond to distress calls when able." A heavy silence fell over the command center. Everyone understood what was at stake. This wasn't just about saving 27 alien lives. It was humanity's first real interaction with the wider galaxy. Chen's expression hardened. She had made her decision. The distress call is sacred. It's a principle older than spaceflight itself. She stood taller, her voice taking on the edge of command. "Inform the fleet. Preparation protocol Sierra Oscar Sierra. We launch in 30 minutes. Commander Rivera's eyes widened slightly, but he nodded firmly. "Yes, Admiral." The command center erupted into activity. Officers rushed to their stations. Emergency alerts sounded throughout Earth's defense network, and the global communication system activated to inform all nations of the decision. Across Earth's orbital shipyards, vessels of the United Earth Defense Force powered up their engines. Massive warships that had never seen combat outside of training exercises hummed to life. Medical frigates prepared their alien adaptable treatment facilities. Supply ships loaded with emergency provisions and repair materials joined the formation. The flagship Prometheus detached from its docking clamps first, its kilometer-long hull gleaming in the sunlight as the most advanced vessel humanity had ever built. It represented the pinnacle of Earth's technological achievement. The rest of Battle Group Alpha followed. The destroyers Sentinel, Guardian, and Protector, along with their support craft. In low Earth orbit, the rescue and medical vessels formed their own group, led by the hospital ship Mercy. None of these ships had ever ventured beyond the quarantine line before. Their crews were a mixture of nervous and determined as they prepared to make history. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Admiral Chen settled into the command chair. Around her, the bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, preparing for the jump to FTL. The coordinates of the distressed Zintheri vessel had been plotted, the fastest route calculated. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Rivera said, taking his position beside her. Chen nodded and opened a channel to the assembled fleet. Her voice would reach every ship, every crew member about to risk everything to answer a call for help. This is Admiral Chen to all UEDF vessels. In moments, we will cross the quarantine line established by the Galactic Concord. We do this not as an act of defiance, but in accordance with the oldest law of space travel, the obligation to render aid to those in distress. She paused, looking at the faces of her bridge crew. Some showed fear, others determination, but all showed pride. For generations, we have prepared for this moment. We have built our ships, trained our crews, and developed our technologies, all while respecting a quarantine we never agreed to. Today, we answer a call for help, knowing it may bring consequences, but we cannot ignore those in need, even if they are strangers. This is humanity's first contact with the wider galactic community. Let's show them what Deathworlders stand for. The bridge crew stood a little straighter at her words. Throughout the fleet, thousands of humans prepared to risk everything for aliens they had never met. Fleet Command, this is Admiral Chen. Execute FTL jump. Space distorted around the human vessels as they accelerated beyond light speed, breaking the quarantine barrier that had contained humanity for a century. They were venturing into a galaxy that feared them to save those who needed them. The rescue mission had begun. Deathworlders unleashed. Commander Vrek stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Talon, a cruel smile spreading across his scaled face. The Zinthari science vessel floated helplessly before them, its sleek hull now scared and broken. His 5 raider ships had the alien vessels surrounded, with no chance of escape. Begin boarding procedures. Vrek ordered, his deep voice rumbling through the command deck. I want their research data intact, and bring neither captain alive. The Kryvax raiders were the most feared pirates in 3 sectors. Their raids were quick, brutal, and always profitable. Scientific vessels like the Luminous Seeker were particularly valuable targets, often carrying rare technology and important research that could be sold to the highest bidder. Boarding craft ready, Commander, his first officer reported. Teams are armed and await your signal. Vrek nodded with satisfaction. This would be an easy capture. The Zinthari were known throughout the galaxy as peaceful researchers, with no combat training or significant defenses. His boarding teams would face little resistance. Launch. The tactical officer's panicked voice cut through the bridge. Hyperspace ruptures detected. Multiple signatures appearing. Vrek spun toward the main view screen, his predatory eyes narrowing. Show me. The screen shifted to display the space around them. What? He snarled, his claws digging into the armrests of his command chair. Dozens of rupture points were forming, far more than their scanners could track. Ships began emerging from hyperspace in perfect military formation. Impossible, Vrek growled. There are no military outposts in this sector, yet the evidence was undeniable. A fleet of unknown vessels now filled the space around them, their design unlike anything in Vrek's extensive database of galactic ship types. They were angular, heavily armored, and moved with a precision that spoke of advanced military training. Identity unknown, the tactical officer reported, voice shaking. No matching signatures in our records. Their hulls bear no identifiable markings from any known species. Hail them, Vrek ordered, sudden unease crawling up his spine. Before his communications officer could comply, all channels on their ship activated simultaneously. A calm voice spoke in perfect galactic standard, followed by repetitions in 12 other major languages. This is Admiral Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. We are responding to a distress call. Stand down and withdraw from the Zinthari vessel immediately. Silence fell across the raider bridge. Earth, the first officer whispered. The quarantined world. Deathworlders. Vrek had heard stories, of course. Every spacefaring species had tales of the isolated system and its dangerous inhabitants, too violent to be allowed into galactic society. They've broken quarantine, the first officer said, voice filled with disbelief. Vrek quickly regained his composure. Quarantined or not, he counted at least 30 vessels in the human fleet, but most appeared to be support ships. He still had 5 heavily armed raider vessels against what might be an inexperienced military force. "Battle stations," he commanded. "Target their lead vessel and fire on my mark." "Commander," his weapons officer ventured, "perhaps we should." "Fire," Vrek roared. The 5 raider ships unleashed their full arsenal against the human fleet. Plasma beams, missile salvos, and disruptor rays, weapons that had decimated countless merchant ships and even military patrols, raced toward the Earth vessels. Inside the crippled Zinthari science vessel, Captain Selteran and her surviving crew watched in astonishment through their few functioning viewports. "Who are they?" Vres asked, his 6 eyes wide with wonder. "Earth Defense Force," Zelteren replied, hardly believing her own words. "Humans. They answered our call." "Humans," gasped Mira. "The Deathworlders." Before anyone could respond, the space beyond their viewport lit up with weapons fire. The raiders had opened fire on the human fleet. The crew held their breath, expecting to see the unknown ships shattered by the pirates' notorious firepower. What happened instead defied everything they knew about space combat. The human vessels moved in ways that should have been impossible for ships their size, absorbing devastating hits that would have crippled any Concord military vessel. Their armored hulls glowed but held. The flagship, a massive vessel at the center of their formation, took 3 direct hits from the raiders' main guns without apparent damage. Then the humans responded. Their weapons were unlike anything the Zinthari had ever seen. Precision-guided rail-gun projectiles moving at significant fractions of light speed tore through the raiders' shields. Focused laser arrays cut through the raiders' armor like it was paper. The humans fired with a discipline and accuracy that spoke of endless training and preparation. 2 raider ships exploded in the first counterattack. A third lost its engines and weapons systems, drifting helplessly. Vrek stared at his tactical display in disbelief. 3 ships lost in less than a minute. His species prided themselves on their warrior culture, but this was something else entirely. "Retreat," he ordered, his voice barely audible. Then, louder. "All ships, retreat. Maximum speed." The 2 remaining functional raiders, including Vrek's flagship, turned and accelerated away from the battle. But the humans weren't finished. 2 smaller Earth vessels broke formation, pursuing the fleeing raiders with impossible speed. "They're faster than us," the helmsman reported, panic evident in his voice. The pursuing human ships didn't fire weapons. Instead, they maneuvered alongside the raiders and launched what appeared to be boarding pods. "Defensive positions," Vrek shouted, drawing his disruptor pistol. "Prepare to repel boarders." The ship shuddered as the boarding pods attached to the hull. Cutting torches began to slice through the armor plating. "How many?" Vrek demanded. "Sensors detect only 12 life forms," the tactical officer reported, confused. "That can't be right." Vrek frowned. 12. To take a ship with a crew of over 100 Kryvax warriors. Either the humans were incredibly stupid or... The hull breached with an explosive charge, and Vrek got his first glimpse of a Deathworlder in combat armor. The human soldiers moved with a speed and precision that defied comprehension. Their armor seemed to anticipate their movements, enhancing rather than hindering them. Their weapons fired with surgical precision, using non-lethal rounds that incapacitated but didn't kill. Vrek's warriors, renowned for their ferocity throughout 3 sectors, fell before them like children. The raiders' disruptor fire seemed to glance off the humans' armor, while every human shot found its mark. Within minutes, the bridge was breached. Vrek raised his disruptor pistol to fire at the first human through the door, but his arm was suddenly pinned to the console by a projectile he hadn't even seen coming. The human soldiers entered the bridge, their movements controlled and efficient. Their leader, distinguishable by markings on her armor, approached Vrek. Her helmet retracted, revealing a face that looked soft and vulnerable to Kryvax eyes. No scales, no natural armor, yet her expression held a coldness that sent a shiver through Vrek's spine. "Commander Vrek of the Kryvax Raiders," she said in perfect Kryvax. "You are under arrest for piracy, attempted murder, and multiple violations of the Galactic Maritime Code." "How do you know my name?" Vrek demanded, clutching his wounded arm. "How do you know our language?" The human's expression didn't change. "We've been listening for a very long time." Aboard the human flagship Prometheus, Captain Zeltarin watched in amazement as the medical staff treated her crew. The human hospital bay was a marvel of technology, with equipment she had never seen before, but that somehow adapted perfectly to Xanthari physiology. "Your crew will recover fully," said Dr. Patel, the human chief medical officer. "Your species is remarkably resilient for having evolved on a low-gravity world." "How do you know so much about us?" Zeltarin asked, still trying to process everything that had happened in the last few hours. Dr. Patel smiled. "Just because we were quarantined doesn't mean we stopped learning about the galaxy. We've been studying all the species we could identify through our deep space observation network." Admiral Chen entered the medical bay, her uniform crisp and her posture straight. She was shorter than Zeltarin had expected for a Deathworlder, but there was an undeniable presence about her. "Captain Zeltarin," Chen said with a respectful nod, "I'm pleased to see you and your crew recovering. Your ship is being repaired by our engineering teams. The damage was extensive, but we should have you space-worthy within 48 hours. I don't know how to thank you," Zeltarin said, her 3 hearts racing with emotion. "You broke your quarantine to save us. You risked everything." "We answered a distress call," Chen replied simply. "Any spacefaring civilization would do the same." Zeltarin lowered her gaze. "Not all would. The Concord has been less than understanding about emergencies in the past." Chen's expression remained neutral, but her eyes hardened slightly. "We've been monitoring Concord communications for decades. We're aware of their selective application of principles." "They were wrong about you," Zeltarin said suddenly. "The Concord. They called you dangerous. They said your biology, your psychology, your very nature made you unfit for the galactic community." "And what do you think now?" Chen asked quietly. Zeltarin looked around the medical bay, where human doctors worked tirelessly to heal aliens they had never met before today. She thought of the precision with which the human fleet had disabled the raiders while minimizing casualties. She remembered how 12 human soldiers had captured a raider ship with over 100 crew without a single death. "I think," she said slowly, "that the galaxy has been missing out." The Galactic Concord Security Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from the 17 founding species sat around the circular chamber, their faces showing various degrees of alarm. "They broke quarantine," thundered Councillor Drax of the Ultharian Dominion. "This is exactly what we feared. The humans have shown their true nature: aggressive, expansionist, militaristic." "They responded to a distress call," countered Councillor Teller of the Xanthari Commonwealth, his voice calm but firm. "A distress call from one of our research vessels, a distress call that our own patrols were too distant to answer." "That does not excuse their violation of Concord law," insisted Drax. "Actually," interjected Councillor Ryle of the Volmaran Republic, "there is the Maritime Code provision. Any vessel capable of rendering aid to a distress call is obligated to do so. The code predates the Concord itself." "A convenient loophole," sneered Drax. "I have reviewed the sensor logs from the Luminous Seeker," continued Taylor. "The humans showed remarkable restraint. They disabled the raider vessels with minimal casualties. They captured the raider commander alive to stand trial under Concord law, and they immediately began medical treatment for the Xanthari crew." "What of the weapons they displayed?" demanded Drax. "Their military capabilities far exceed what we estimated." "Which raises the question," Ryle said thoughtfully, "of why they have never used those capabilities against us, despite a century of enforced isolation. They could have broken quarantine at any time." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans have requested formal diplomatic recognition, announced High Counselor Vex, head of the Security Council. They ask for the quarantine to be lifted and for Earth to be granted observer status in the Concord. Absolutely not. Drax slammed his fist on the table. I move to grant their request, Teller said firmly. The Zintheri Commonwealth formally seconds the proposal. As does the Volmaran Republic, added Ryle. One by one, the councillors voted. The final tally: 9 in favor, 8 opposed. The motion carries, declared High Counselor Vex. The quarantine of Sol system is hereby lifted. Earth will be granted observer status in the Galactic Concord, with a path to full membership to be determined. 6 months later, the diplomatic reception hall aboard Concord Station bustled with representatives from across the galaxy. At the center of attention stood the newly arrived human delegation. Captain Zell Turin, now serving as special liaison to Earth, approached Admiral Chen, who wore a formal diplomatic uniform instead of her military attire. Admiral Zell Turin greeted her warmly, or should I say, Ambassador Chen now. Chen smiled. I'm still getting used to the title myself. The Concord is still adjusting to your presence, Zell Turin admitted. Some species remain concerned. That's understandable, Chen replied. Fear of the unknown is universal, but we've waited a century for this opportunity. We can be patient a while longer. There's something I've been wondering, Zell Turin said. Your fleet was so prepared, so coordinated. It was as if you had been training for exactly this moment. Chen's smile turned enigmatic. In a way, we were. Humanity has spent generations preparing not just our technology and our military, but our mindset. We wanted our first true contact with the galaxy to define us not by our strength, but by how we choose to use it. Across the reception hall, human diplomats engaged with representatives from dozens of species. Scientists exchanged research. Cultural attaches explained Earth customs and arts. Medical personnel discussed treatment protocols. I remembered the stories I heard as a child, Zell Turin said softly. They called you Deathworlders. They said you were dangerous. We are dangerous, Chen acknowledged. But danger and threat are not the same thing. A surgeon's scalpel is dangerous, but in the right hands, it heals rather than harms. Zell Turin nodded thoughtfully. The old stories were right about one thing, though. What's that? Chen asked. When Deathworlders answer a distress call, Zell Turin said with a smile, the only ones who need to fear are those who caused the distress in the first place. The galaxy was learning what humanity had known all along, that strength without compassion is merely brutality, but strength guided by empathy is the foundation of civilization itself. The Deathworlders had finally taken their place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as guardians. And across the void, whenever a distress call echoed through the darkness of space, ships would respond, some bearing the emblem of Earth, crewed by beings from a world that had forged them into something both terrifying and wonderful. Humans, the Deathworlders who had proven that the most dangerous species in the galaxy could also be its greatest hope.